Azure landing zones are designed to provide a scalable and modular environment that follows key design principles across various areas such as security, management, governance, and more. These principles accommodate all application portfolios and enable application migration, modernization, and innovation at scale. The Cloud Adoption Framework, CAF, includes Azure landing zones as part of its guidance for preparing your cloud environment. The CAF helps organizations plan and implement their cloud adoption journey, and Azure landing zones play a crucial role in this process by providing a foundation for deploying and managing resources in Azure. The Well-Architected Framework, WAF, also leverages Azure landing zones to ensure that cloud environments are built following best practices for operational excellence, performance efficiency, reliability, security, and cost optimization. The Cloud Adoption Framework, CAF, includes Azure landing zones as part of its guidance for preparing your cloud environment. The CAF helps organizations plan and implement their cloud adoption journey, and Azure landing zones play a crucial role in this process by providing a foundation for deploying and managing resources in Azure. Although CAF includes ALZ as part of its guidance for preparing your cloud environment, the Well-Architected Framework, WAF, which is discussed in the next section, also leverages Azure landing zones to ensure that cloud environments are built following best practices for operational excellence, performance efficiency, reliability, security, and cost optimization. An Azure landing zone is an environment that follows key design principles across 8 design areas. These design principles accommodate all application portfolios and enable application migration, modernization, and innovation at scale. An Azure landing zone uses subscriptions to isolate and scale application resources and platform resources. These design areas are Azure Billing and Microsoft Entra Tenant, Identity and Access Management, Management Group and Subscription Organization, Network Topology and Connectivity Security, Management Governance Platform Automation and DevOps. Azure Landing Zone Environment Design Areas, Azure Billing and Entra Tenant, proper tenant creation, enrollment, and billing setup are important early steps. Identity and Access Management. Identity and access management is a primary security boundary in the public cloud. It's the foundation for any secure and fully compliant architecture. Network topology and connectivity. Networking and connectivity decisions are an equally important foundational aspect of any cloud architecture. Resource organization. As cloud adoption scales, considerations for subscription design and management group hierarchy have an impact on governance, operations management, and adoption patterns. Azure Landing Zone Compliance Design Areas. Security. Implement controls and processes to protect your cloud environments. Management. For stable, ongoing operations in the cloud, a management baseline is required to provide visibility, operations compliance, and protect and recover capabilities. Governance. Automate auditing and enforcement of governance policies. Platform automation and DevOps. Align the best tools and templates to deploy your landing zones and supporting resources. Security operations design considerations. Security alerts. Which teams require notifications for security alerts? Are there groups of services that alerts require routing to different teams? Business requirements for real-time monitoring and alerting. Security information and event management integration with Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Microsoft Sentinel. Security logs. Data retention periods for audit data. Microsoft Entra ID P1 or P2 reports have a 30-day retention period. Long-term archiving of logs like Azure Activity Logs, Virtual Machine, VM, logs, and Platform as a Service, PaaS, logs. Security controls. Baseline security configuration via Azure in Guest VM policy. Consider how your security controls will align with governance guardrails. Vulnerability management. Emergency patching for critical vulnerabilities. Patching for VMs that are offline for extended periods of time. Vulnerability assessment of VMs. Shared responsibility. Where are the handoffs for team responsibilities? These responsibilities need consideration when monitoring or responding to security events. Consider the guidance in the secure methodology for security operations. Encryption and keys. Who requires access to keys in the environment? Who will be responsible for managing the keys? Explore encryption and keys further. Attestation. Will you use trusted launch for your VMs, and do you need attestation of the integrity of the entire boot chain of your VM, UEFI, OS, system, and drivers? Do you want to take advantage of confidential disk encryption for your confidential VMs? Do your workloads require attestation that they're running inside a trusted environment? Security Operations Design Recommendations. Use Microsoft Entra ID reporting capabilities to generate access control audit reports. Export Azure Activity Logs to Azure Monitor Logs for long-term data retention. Export to Azure Storage for long-term storage beyond 2 years, if necessary. Enable Defender for Cloud Standard for all subscriptions, and use Azure Policy to ensure compliance. Monitor Base Operating System Patching Drift via Azure Monitor Logs and Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Use Azure policies to automatically deploy software configurations through VM extensions and enforce a compliant baseline VM configuration. Monitor VM security configuration drift via Azure policy. Connect default resource configurations to a centralized Azure Monitor Log Analytics workspace. Use an Azure Event Grid-based solution for log-oriented, real-time alerts. Use Azure Attestation for attestation of the integrity of the entire boot chain of your VM. For more information, see Boot Integrity Monitoring Overview. Secure release of confidential disk encryption keys for a confidential VM. For more information, see Confidential OS Disk Encryption. Various types of workload trusted execution environments. Advanced Network Security. Plan for inbound and outbound internet connectivity. Describes recommended connectivity models for inbound and outbound connectivity to and from the public internet. Plan for landing zone network segmentation. Explores key recommendations to deliver highly secure internal network segmentation within a landing zone. These recommendations drive network zero trust implementation. Define network encryption requirements. Explores key recommendations to achieve network encryption between on-premises and Azure and across Azure regions. Plan for traffic inspection. Explores key considerations and recommended approaches for mirroring or tapping traffic within Azure Virtual Network. For zero trust access with identities, you should consider which teams or individuals require access to services within the landing zone. What roles are they doing? Who should authorize the access requests? Who should receive the notifications when privileged roles are activated? Who should have access to the audit history? Access Control Design Recommendations. In the context of your underlying requirements, conduct a joint examination of each required service. If you want to bring your own keys, it might not be supported across all considered services. Implement relevant mitigations so that inconsistencies don't hinder wanted outcomes. Choose appropriate region pairs and disaster recovery regions that minimize latency. Develop a security allow list plan to assess services like security configuration, monitoring, and alerts. Then create a plan to integrate them with existing systems. Determine the incident response plan for Azure services before moving it into production. Align your security requirements with Azure platform roadmaps to stay current with newly released security controls. Implement a zero-trust approach for access to the Azure platform where appropriate. Governance provides mechanisms and processes for maintaining control over platforms, applications, and resources in Azure. Design Area Review. Roles or functions. Azure governance originates from cloud governance. You might need to implement the cloud platform or a cloud center of excellence to define and apply certain technical requirements. Governance focuses on enforcing operations and security requirements, which might require cloud security, central IT, or cloud operations. Scope. Consider your decisions from identity, network, security, and management design area reviews. Your team can compare review decisions from automated governance, which is part of the Azure Landing Zone Accelerator. Review decisions can help you determine what to audit or enforce and what policies to automatically deploy. Out of scope. Azure Governance establishes the foundation for networking, but it doesn't address compliance-related components, such as advanced network security or automated guardrails to enforce networking decisions. You can address these networking decisions when you review compliance design areas that are related to security and governance. The cloud platform team should address initial networking requirements before addressing more complex components. Existing, brownfield, cloud environment. If you want to apply proven practice Azure governance principles to existing Azure environments, consider the following guidance. Establish a management baseline for your hybrid or multi-cloud environment. Implement Microsoft cost management features, like billing scopes, budgets, and alerts, to ensure that you don't exceed your expense limit. Use Azure policy to enforce governance guardrails on Azure deployments and trigger remediation tasks to bring existing Azure resources into a compliant state. Consider using the Microsoft Entra Entitlement Management feature to automate Azure Access request workflows, access assignments, reviews, and expiration. Use Azure Advisor recommendations to ensure cost optimization and operational excellence in Azure, both of which are core principles of the Microsoft Azure Well-Architected Framework. The Azure Landing Zones Bicep Deployment Flow repository contains Bicep deployment templates that can accelerate your greenfield and brownfield Azure Landing Zone deployments. These templates have integrated Microsoft proven practice governance guidance. Brownfield Landing Zone considerations. Resource organization. In a brownfield environment, you've already established your Azure environment. But it's never too late to apply proven resource organization principles now and moving forward. Consider implementing any of the following suggestions. If your current environment doesn't use management groups, consider them. Management groups are key to managing policies, access, and compliance across subscriptions at scale. Management groups help guide your implementation. If your current environment uses management groups, consider the guidance in management groups when evaluating your implementation. If you have existing subscriptions in your current environment, consider the guidance in subscriptions to see if you're using them effectively. Subscriptions act as policy and management boundaries and are scale units. If you have existing resources in your current environment, consider using the guidance in naming and tagging to influence your tagging strategy and your naming conventions going forward. Azure policy is useful in establishing and enforcing consistency regarding taxonomic tags. Security. To refine your existing Azure environment's security posture regarding authentication, authorization, and accounting is an ongoing, iterative process. Consider implementing the following recommendations. Deploy Microsoft Entra Connect Cloud Sync to provide your local Active Directory domain services, add DS, users with secure single sign-on, SSO, to your Microsoft Entra ID-backed applications. Another benefit to configuring hybrid identity is you can enforce Microsoft Entra Multi-Factor Authentication, MFA, and Microsoft Entra Password Protection to further protect these identities. Provide secure authentication to your cloud apps and Azure resources by using Microsoft Entra Conditional Access. Implement Microsoft Entra Privileged Identity Management to ensure least privilege access and deep reporting in your entire Azure environment. Teams should begin recurring access reviews to ensure the right people and service principals have current and correct authorization levels. Also, study the access control guidance. Make use of the recommendations, alerting, and remediation capabilities of Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Your security team can also integrate Microsoft Defender for Cloud into Microsoft Sentinel if they need a more robust, centrally managed hybrid and multi-cloud security information event management, SIEM, security orchestration and response, SOAR, solution. Governance. Like Azure Security, Azure Governance isn't a one-and-done proposition. Rather, it's an ever-evolving process of standardization and compliance enforcement. Consider implementing the following controls. Review our guidance for establishing a management baseline for your hybrid or multi-cloud environment. Implement Microsoft cost management features like billing scopes, budgets, and alerts to ensure your Azure spend stays within prescribed bounds. Use Azure policy to enforce governance guardrails on Azure deployments, and trigger remediation tasks to bring existing Azure resources into a compliant state. Consider Microsoft Entra Entitlement Management to automate Azure requests, access assignments, reviews, and expiration. Apply Azure Advisor recommendations to ensure cost optimization and operational excellence in Azure, both of which are core principles of the Microsoft Azure well-architected framework. Networking. It's true that refactoring an already established Azure Virtual Network, VNet, infrastructure can be a heavy lift for many businesses. That said, consider incorporating the following guidance into your network design, implementation, and maintenance efforts. Review our best practices for planning, deploying, and maintaining Azure VNet Hub and Spoke topologies. Consider Azure Virtual Network Manager, Preview, to centralize Network Security Group, NSG, security rules across multiple VNets. Azure Virtual WAN unifies networking, security, and routing to help businesses build hybrid cloud architectures safer and quicker. Access Azure Data Services privately with Azure Private Link. The Private Link service ensures your users and applications communicate with key Azure services by using the Azure Backbone Network and private IP addresses instead of over the public internet.